Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's BAInsights session. Today, we're talking about business analysis, communication plans, and I'm really pleased to have two guests, possibly a third, join us for this conversation. So let's start with some introductions. And Agnieszka, perhaps we can start with you first, please.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation and really looking forward to share my thoughts on the topic. I'm actually the president of IIBA Poland chapter, but I'm also a business trainer and a mentor for business analysts. This is what I do for most of my time.
Thank you, Agnieszka. Thank you very much. And Dmytro?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm joining to the words that Agnieszka said. So I'm happy to join to your company, guys, and just speak about the very actual business analysis topic for all of our business analysts that we have under IIBA chapter umbrella and even more. So I'm Dmytro Lozovyskyi, Chief Business Analyst, EPAM System company. And I like to share my knowledge in business analysis area, and I am always trying to combine different kind of roles in my project activities. So that allows me to share my experience from different point of views with you guys.
Perfect. And you're in absolutely the right place, Dmytro, to share some of that knowledge that you pointed to. So excellent. Really glad to have you join the call, both of you. So let's start. And I mean, we're talking about here to talk about communication plans. So I wonder, Agnieszka, perhaps we'll start with you first in terms of what is a communication plan, perhaps in the context of business analysis.
Okay, so when I was preparing for the call, I actually did some homework. For me, a communication plan should answer three questions. So what do we want to communicate? To whom do we want to communicate, and how do we want to communicate that? So I think that's a good point to start, to search for the answers for the question and put it into some structure. Of course, probably additionally some feedback to that, and to maintain the communication plan is another topic, but definitely this is something I would like to start from our conversation.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent start, Agnieszka. Thank you. Dmytro?
Yeah, I just want to add something to Agnieszka answer. Actually, for me, is always communication plan question. It is always about the people, yeah, because we need to not only know what kind of people should be joining our communication process, but we should find the right people. So that is why communication plan question is always closely connected with stakeholder analysis question as well. So because as a business analyst, this is a guy, it's a role, yeah, project role that should definitely knows what kind of questions he should ask, what kind of person, yeah. So what he should know what kind of questions he should address to what kind of person, yeah. So this is great idea. I like these thoughts just announced by Agnieszka, and also I want to add that communication business analysis plan, we need in that doc, yep, we need to include also the strategic things, because we need to have the right communication in the right moment of project delivery at all, yeah. So that is why we need to align communication plan vision with business analysis strategic plan vision, and with delivery project vision as well.
Yeah, excellent. And it really does highlight a few things there, and it builds on not only what Agnieszka said, but it's also builds on the fact that typically the business analysis communication plan is not done in complete isolation to the wider initiative in which the analysis is being done. You know, it recognizes, you know, that it might be part of a project or a program or a product delivery or something else, which may actually probably hopefully have a communication structure of its own that we might be able to leverage or build upon. So I think that they show some highlight some very important points there. I think the only things I would add beyond that, I mean, you obviously already mentioned stakeholders as well. So I think it's probably only person to just share that the communication plan just gives a more structured perspective on how we're going to communicate with those stakeholders. And because it's actually something, a physical plan, whether it's on paper or whether it's virtual, it just gives stakeholders an opportunity to refer to it and understand how and when and to whom to communicate with. But you've done such a great job of explaining what it is. There's really not much more for me to say. Other than that, perhaps we'll pitch a question to you, Dmytro, then, in terms of what are the components of an effective communication plan?
Yes, thank you for this question, John. I think that we need to think always about the channels of communication when we're going to communicate with somebody who is important for us, especially with decision makers, at all. And we need to find the suitable way of communication with each group of stakeholders, or just concrete stakeholder. From decision of whom, depends a lot of things on the project. So we need to think about the pace of communication, not only the way, but the pace of communication at all, because we could define the right person, we could define the right way, but we could have not enough pace of information gathering from our communication peer, and we're going to stack, or we're going to be blocked, etc., etc. So that is why we also need to understand how often we need to communicate with different group of people. And I think that we need to be prepared for each communication session, because we need to structurize our information messages very well, and we need to clearly understand what kind of information message for whom we should address and in what form. Because information message form, it's also it's also matter. For all of us as for business analysts, especially in time when everyone is busy.
I agree. And and what you're calling out there, Dmytro, as well, is that for the majority of those aspects around the timing, the frequency, the pace, these are generally talking about perhaps the more formal communication channels, but they probably also recognise those informal channels as well. That the communication plan shouldn't be the only mechanism in which we communicate. We should just have to follow the rigid, via certain meetings or certain sessions at a certain point in time. I guess it's just there to recognize the formal channels that we should be going through.
And John, I think that we always have on our projects two sides of communication: formal, as you mentioned before, and informal. So both of them are working. Both channels are working, and I highly recommend it to find opportunity and to make this part of formal communication just as the biggest one. Because informal communication channels, they are good to get some kind of insights, or maybe to confirm some hypothesis or assumptions from business analysts, but they are not official. So that is why we need to think about the formal communication as the absolutely great channel, and to make sure that this communication process has enough transparency, at all, for all of us, because transparency will burn the trust.
That's right. And it goes back to the point you're making earlier, both of you, that the reason why we do this is to provide that transparency, help people engage, bring stakeholders together. So we certainly want to foster that trust, as you said, rather than make it seem that there are channels that can bypass the formal ones anyway.
One guru of business analysis, I just provided some kind of simple formula. So the enough level of communication on the project means the great level of delivery process at all. So we need to know that, and we need to remind ourselves from time to time these things.
That's right. Agnieszka, your view on that question around the components of a communication plan?
Yes, so I was listening, and I actually wanted to share that the things that you mentioned that really are very aligned with what I believe. So the first thing, John, you mentioned about structured. So definitely this is the word I would like to put next to communication plan. This is some structured approach. And another thing is, Dmytro, that you mentioned about stakeholder analysis. So I also truly believe that communication plan starts with stakeholder analysis. There cannot be a communication plan without stakeholder analysis. So definitely that's the part that I would put also in a communication plan. But I think I will also start with an objective, because to have a bias from our stakeholders to understanding why does the communication plan is important, because we can create a really perfect communication plan. And if we don't make them understand and educate, why do we need the plan? Why is it needed? You know, some people don't like structured things, they like informal more, but I completely agree with Dmytro that, you know, informal communication is good for maintaining relationships, you know, for building trust, for other, let's say, needs of BAs that they have. But still, we need to have approvals. We need to have confirmation. It's easy to say things, but other people don't see, or they are not written. And this is not what we actually, not always what we want. So I would add an objective there. Of course, stakeholders, methods of communication, frequency, I think that was mentioned too. Maybe responsibilities, who is creating documents and who is responsible for sending invitations. They're really simple things, but often, you know, okay, let's communicate, and we forget. And no one does it. There are always more important things. And actually, I truly believe there are sometimes things that are not urgent, but important. And these are the things that when you don't plan them into your calendar, actually, to be there, you'll always have something more important to do.
Right, yeah.
So responsibilities, definitely. Maybe some feedback mechanism you can ask too.
Yeah.
Because you start from some assumptions, okay, what communication, how email, which tool work for different types of stakeholders, you adjust, but then you want to hear if it really works for them. Maybe they need something more, so you work on the common expectations on the topic, what the BA expect, what kind of information, and what the stakeholder can actually give. So you need to have this kind of maybe feedback, maybe escalation mechanism, how to maintain the communication plan, you know, if something doesn't go wrong. I truly believe that when you agree on that before it happens, it's a better way to do it. Yes. So this is maybe something I would add to, and how we will document too, how we will document the communication.
Yeah, and I think that I can just confirm all things that Agnieszka just right now highlighted for us. And on technical level, I just want to add to Agnieszka words a couple of things. On technical level, guys, it's always reflected. All kind of communication should be reflected in our work schedule. Yeah, work schedule of our meetings. And this is a best practice for all of us. Yeah, to create not only to create just a regular business analyst artifact, one of the big part of them, yeah, just communication plan Confluence, for example, page, yeah, or Google Doc with some kind of form of communication plan, and also linked all things that are important just in that doc with your Outlook calendar or Google Calendar, etc., etc. So everybody who going to see this doc just can find the right place and right time to connect you.
That's right. And it's interesting that you brought up Confluence. I certainly had it on my list already, Dmytro. So I'm glad you brought it up, because thinking about that format of the communications as well, you know, it means that you know, if we use certain mediums such as Confluence as an example, it means that some of our stakeholders can go and self-serve and go and get the information they need, rather than wait for us to put it into a PowerPoint and send it to them as well.
By the way, guys, we always shouldn't forget about the one more great practice, business analyst practice. When we're going to set up just our project after discovery phase, when we're going to start the project, when we started onboarding process of the project, and this is the right time to set up some kind of workshop with all key stakeholders and just talk with them how we're going to communicate, guys. Maybe you prefer this or that. What we should remember when we're going to communicate with you, yeah? So that is really, really interesting and powerful tool, yeah, in the hands of business analysts.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something, Dmytro, that's I think individuals can either just have on their list of topics to cover when they go through their estimation, their plan, or more formally, sometimes I've seen like needs assessment documents or needs assessment forms, so that within the workshop or within separate sessions, they can record the different needs from different groups to really get that big picture on what everyone needs. I think it sort of very nicely touches on both topics you've touched on there, in that the communication plan isn't just one thing. It's not just for one type of stakeholder. It isn't always in one type of format. It doesn't need to be static forever. It can change as the stakeholder needs evolve as well. But you've both done such a good job of calling out the different component parts to it. Then once again, not much more for me to add, other than thank you both for adding that level of detail. I'm sure everyone's a lot clearer as to how they might start to build up their own communication plans, or at least what's going to be inside it anyway. On the point of actually how to pull up a plan together or to produce the communication plan, I wonder, Agnieszka, I mean, you said, I think it was yourself, you touching on sort of certain aspects of how you approach it in your last answer, but haven't gone to all dimensions, I'm sure. How would you typically recommend, or how would you approach pulling together your stakeholder communication plan?
So what the question is, let me just ask, how would I start to create a communication plan?
You could see it as how would you start, or you could think of it as a whole approach. So I'm quite happy for you to apply whichever of those questions you like.
Yeah, okay. So I'm very into IIBA practices. So I will let's say relate to that also. Excellent. So first you need to have a whole BA approach, definitely, yes, created. So you need to know what kind of approach, there is agile or anything else, how you will be doing. This is the first thing that you probably need. And then the stakeholder analysis. So I completely agree here with Dmytro. This is all about people. So communication is what you want to communicate to whom and when. Yes, so you need to know those people and really get to understand them. There are people that need to be more in control of information and be on a CC of every email, for example. And we need to understand that, because otherwise maybe they will change the attitude or something will happen. But there are people who just need one piece of information from time to time. So we need to know who they are, what's their role actually in the project. So I will definitely start from making a list of stakeholders, their needs, their attitudes towards the projects. Maybe some of them, they are not very happy about the project, or they are not happy about business analysis at all. They don't have a good attitude. So we also need to have it in mind that maybe we'll have to do some kind of stakeholder matrix and see the power and influence, yes, the interest and the power and how they are with the project. And then probably I will start from that. So combine the business analysis approach, the tasks, the timing with the people, and adjust and try to schedule that with the frequency. And then probably I will search for the tools that are already used in the organization and the project, because this is something to start from. So if there are approaches that are already used, definitely this is something to start from. So we don't have to start from the very, very beginning and just invent, just see what there are, what we can use already, adjust to our vision of the project, and then on top of that, add something. So I think that's the approach. And I also like to divide this into two parts. So first is creating a communication plan, which is the beginning. And the second part is maintaining a communication plan. As you mentioned, it's not static thing. So we start from agreeing on something, but then we really want to be aware it's not a document that just lies on a Google Drive or anywhere on SharePoint, whatever we choose in information management, yes, approach, what tools do we use, but this should be something that really serves the needs of the project. Yes, so this is how I would like to see that. And that people know where they will get information, what kind of information, and what's also what is expected from them, from the project, so that they don't say, okay, I didn't know, for example, you didn't tell me that before. This is what happens often. So I think that the soonest we plan for that and we know what we want for the projects, we know our stakeholders, we really put this effort to understand them, who they are as also as people and as their roles in a company, in a project. Also maybe see some informal leaders who are in a company, which is also an important thing to see. And then also add some maintenance mechanism, yes, so that they feel that, okay, we need also to do some lessons learned, to do some observation and be really active and dynamic on the topic. Yeah. So this is probably what I would do.
And that, I mean, I won't, obviously you brought up a load of really relevant and interesting points there, but I think there was a couple that I'll probably talk about. I think is that evolving view of the communication plan, coupled with the attitudes that you mentioned, because it's really important to talk to individuals, find out what their attitude is at a certain point to how they want to communicate, how they want to be involved, but recognise that that's not a perspective that will always remain, and perhaps that's also a good time to talk to those stakeholders to find out what's an effective way of reappraising their need. So if someone merely just wants to be informed occasionally, we can at least agree from that conversation that if their situation changes, they can approach you and we can adjust the way we communicate with them. But also, we do speak to them in the future. We can remind them that actually we're communicating fairly informally at the minute, and just keep them abreast of the situation and give them the option to change the way that they receive information as well. So I definitely like those 2 points that you made there, amongst many, Agnieszka, and it works together.
Thank you, John. Maybe one thing to add is that I think that also when the communication plan doesn't go as planned, it also should be communicated. Like, okay, we are not doing that. Maybe this is something that we should talk through. I'm really very into being real with what's there in the project. And I truly believe that all the documents, everything that we prepare, it should just serve people, like our goals and what we do. It shouldn't be just, okay, I can think of a really fancy communication plan and create a great document, but okay, no one will use it. It will be useless. So I think that's something I would like to really highlight at the end.
I think so. And that's why presumably when you mentioned earlier on some of the components with that feedback mechanism and that loop, it's in order to recognise sometimes the communication won't be as good as it can be or as effective as it can be. So you're giving stakeholders that opportunity to tweak or revise the approach to suit them or the situation. So yeah, thank you very much for joining a few of those dots there. Thank you. Dmytro, what will be your view?
Yeah, I just want again to add a couple of things. One small tip, that we can use in our practice from the scratch. I think that it's a great opportunity when the project is starting, to find the coordinators and supporters on your client side, so and use them to define the right people. That help you and speed up the process of your communication at all. So this is the first tip, and the second tip is about some thinking process of business analyst on question that or related to the question on what kind of stakeholders should have what kind of information. And in that case, as Agnieszka mentioned, that we have absolutely great classification tool, so influence power, this matrix. But also beside that, you shouldn't forget about the RESI matrix at all, because we need to just add additional information to this vision and to think what kind of stakeholders should have what kind of information. And based on that input in communication, you can, based on that input, you can just form in the future or some kind of reporting system, yeah, on the project. As well, this is also some kind of conclusion and some kind of or some kind of output, yeah, from communication process setup. That is also need to be catch up from business analyst side, and I think that we are pretty good or pretty enough. Yep, with that
so.
question.
So much so. I mean, I don't have much more to add myself on that one. I mean, I think all I would add is that typically I tend to favour an approach where, as I said before, I think the stakeholders can access the communication plan. That there's more than one person, who is able to update that plan, and that everybody can go and access it as they need, get the information from it they need, and provide that feedback at any point that that might result in slightly different communication in the future. So you mentioned as well, the pair of you, while we've been talking over the last few questions, various tools and techniques as part of your approaches or part of your responses. Examples would be the RACI matrix, the power influence grid, to name a few. Are there any other tools or techniques that perhaps also spring to mind that you might want to share? And I'll start with you on that one, Dmytro.
Yes, sure. We going to start, especially last time, we trying to use AI tool helpers, yeah, in our communication process as well, especially for making meeting notes. Don't miss anything that was said during the long stakeholders meetings. Yeah, so this is the first, I think, recommendation for our guys, for our colleagues, to think about AI tools as a helpers, yeah, for you. The second is that probably in enterprise world, the communication channels are pretty standards, and communication tools are also pretty standards. Yep. So, but don't forget, guys, about the security of communication channels and security of some messages from your stakeholders. It's also a great thing that you should take in account on your side, because not all information just could be delivered for everyone. Yeah. So, yeah. And yes, and I think the third thing that I just right now thinking about is to analyze the outcomes on permanent basis from your communication process. For that objective, you can use some kind of organizational approach. So you can set up some governance meeting with your client representatives, not with all stakeholders of your project, but with the key stakeholders on your project. And you can provide them some kind of doubts or maybe just potential risks discussion about the stacking in communication process, some kind of reasons that can block you, or maybe their colleagues on client side, to just provide to us the right information, etc., etc. And you need to discuss these questions on governance level with your client representatives, just for example, on monthly basis, yeah, or something like that. You can do that. You should do that, and believe me, guys, you will find out a lot of interesting things about not only communication but about the cooperation efficiency process. So yeah, please use that. Yeah.
Agnieszka, anything from you in additional tools or techniques? And apologies, we haven't left you a load of ones perhaps to talk about, but any that occur.
No, I was just thinking, because the first like RACI matrix or the interest power matrix, we can definitely use for stakeholder analysis. So one more tool that comes to my mind is maybe an onion diagram that we can also use there for that. Or organizational structure that can be also some kind of helpful for doing stakeholder analysis. For a communication plan, I think if you would like to go deeper into the topic, you can do some process modeling also for that, because this is also a communication process too. You know, can be some decision modeling or decision analysis, what decisions are inside, but that's probably like when you want to really structure that in a way. So this is what I have written down when I was listening to Dmytro. Actually, we are doing this kind of thing now in the chapter. So we go through mission, vision, values, and our communication channels, marketing approach. So we are trying to structure that. And next to this, after doing documents, then the next step for me, if that's more mature, you can really make a process from that. So you can model that, you can add some decisions. Who is making a decision? Again, RASI matrix, but not for the stakeholders, but for the tasks that are in a communication plan. So it depends on how detailed that can be, I think.
That's it. And you mentioned onion diagram there, Agnieszka. Can you just outline a little bit as to what we mean by onion diagram for those listening?
Yes, so you would like to put stakeholders into layers, the one that are mostly in a team connected with the project, and then the one that are more farther and less interested. So you put them into the layers, or on how much they are involved or engaged into the project. So that's another way of showing the engagement, the involvement of our stakeholders.
Excellent. And it just goes to prove on almost every one of these sessions, I learn about a new technique or a slightly different approach, or perhaps a new name for something I'm also familiar with. So this one proves no different in that case. So I mean, I think as far as I'm concerned, I mean, as far as techniques are concerned, you've both definitely covered all of those that I would have naturally brought up as well. I think particularly, like the Gen AI, using ChatGPT as an example as well. I think it's a good opportunity, as Dmytro said earlier on. I think just something else that he said as well made me think that sometimes some of the tools that we can use are actually tools that we're using for other purposes primarily as well. So as I naturally started thinking about, well, our requirements management tools, sometimes there is an opportunity to record comments or additional points on there. So if there is going to be a process to comment on requirements, as an example, then our communication plan should probably reflect that. And it should probably reflect what we need to do as a result of any comments, whether they apply during analysis or after the requirements have been signed off, perhaps, because they might have a slightly different outcome if we think about those two simplistic scenarios.
Yeah. So I would like to add to this AI, because now I had the thought. Because I actually use ChatGPT for that a lot, and it's very, very helpful, because you can write as a BA when communicating to that kind of person, and you can get the same information in like different ways, even writing your email, or sometimes when I'm not in the mood, or I'm, like with human, there are different things that are happening. So I would like to get the emotions from the email. That's really helpful, actually. I don't know if anyone does, probably yes, but sometimes you would like to communicate in a too emotional way, and that's where ChatGPT is really very helpful. So I ask him, okay, if
That's
you
right.
can you write it in a more polite way, so that the person doesn't know that maybe I'm triggered with something. Yes, so that's very helpful too.
It makes me think as well, it's quite an interesting tool, or similar tools to ChatGPT would also be applied to this, in that if you need to adjust your terminology or adjust the way you say something for a different set of stakeholders, whereas not using that tool probably means we have to be creative ourselves and think about how we might structure those types of messages and information. At least perhaps using tooling like ChatGPT will enable us to almost like customize, build in those personas, so we can play our communication requirements through it, as it were.
Yeah, we definitely can get inspired. I'm not into just copy paste what ChatGPT says, definitely, but we can get inspired. And sometimes we tend to use the same structures of sentences and words all the time. So it's also helpful to get out of your head too, I think. So yeah.
I agree, absolutely. And so we're talking about approaches, techniques, tools. What are the communication plans as well? Be interested to know, starting with yourself, Agnieszka, if you've come across any challenges that you'd like to share, and if there are any that you'd like to share, how you've overcome them.
So the first challenge that come now to my mind when you pop the question is that the bias of stakeholders to communication. So so that they understand and they really, if you have stakeholders who can communicate their needs well, yes, that's a great situation, but it doesn't happen very often. So probably that's the first thing, that they need to understand why is it actually needed and have this willingness to stick to the plan too. So that may be the first challenge. The second challenge is that you don't adjust the information to the stakeholder. And in communication, you always have a person who sends the information, the one that receives, and the message. So these are 3 components of the communication. And it hits me many times that I really think that I'm putting the words in a way that are understood. But then I met another person that turns my word around, and it turns out that he or he doesn't understand like anything, like anything. And then you get to the point that, okay, you need to check the understanding too. Like you need to ask the questions and ask those stakeholders to maybe paraphrase on what you have said, so that you really are clear that the communication happened. Yes, because sometimes we say what we need stakeholders say, but then in practice, it doesn't work. So that's maybe the second thing. And the third thing that I would like to mention is maintaining of communication plans. So we are very good sometimes in making plans, being very enthusiastic about that. And then putting that into action is maybe something that we really struggle. So I think next to that, we always should think about, okay, how we can really make that work. Support ourselves. We are just humans. So I always highlight that. So we sometimes don't feel like doing things, and that's okay. But how we can support, like make some things that will remind us about doing that. For example, set this kind of helpers for you to, and and maybe some meetings too, some feedback meetings, and just really take care about that, because as I mentioned, from the Eisenhower matrix, these are things that are important but really not urgent, but very helpful for the project. So you need to put effort to make it work, otherwise they will not work.
And it makes me think, as you were talking and exploring a few scenarios there, in that I think it's all very well just defining the communication plan. As you said, we need to keep it live and active and change it. So perhaps what we need to do is try and bring it into conversations a little bit more, so that, that if there is a new stakeholder that's been introduced to the project or the initiative, that they get to appreciate the reason we're talking to them in a situation is because fundamentally that's been recognised in the communication plan. So they get to be aware of it. Maybe they get to look at it. Maybe they get to opine on whether that needs to change. And while doing all of that, the rest of the group are just reminded of its existence, which might promote some people to look at it. But if nothing else, it just reminds the BA to look at it as well.
I think also let go of our assumptions about people, about communication. This is something, I think it's a lifetime thing that we do as people, let go of our assumptions. But as BAs, like being aware that we have assumptions about people, about project, about different things, and really trying to always check if that's valid, check if that's valid for the current situation. So that's what's really helpful.
I agree. And Dmytro, any challenges that you would like to share?
Yes, and as for me, I just like to support Agnieszka again. Yes, with assumptions especially. This is a remarkable question for all of us, and I think that we need to be aware that all kind of not confirmed assumptions for us is they are potential risks. Yeah. Not only in project, area, but in life area as well. So in communication process also. And as for me, on the first place, I think that in big and challengeable projects, I mean, first of all, enterprise level projects or mid-size IT projects. As for me, I can put on the first place decision-making process, because it's not easy to agree the decision, and you need to prepare for such class of meetings when you want to get the right decision or needed decision, and you need to align this decision with all participants of the meeting, all contributors of this or that meeting. You need to be prepared, and for our guys, I just want to recommend to think about the workshop technique as well, yeah, as one of the way how you're going to involve the needed stakeholders in the decision-making process, and provide some kind of responsibility and feeling of participation in big things in project life. And the second question that I want to highlight is executive discipline. Again, Agnieszka just mentioned that, but I think that delegation is not only delegation as an approach, yep, to delegate somebody, yeah, something. It's not only beneficial thing. It also at the same could be a tricky thing, because you need to know for whom you should delegate, what kind of things you should delegate, in what form you're going to explain this or that, because you are the thinker. First of all, on the project, you are a visionary. You are not only doer as a business analyst, yeah, but you need to take care about this question as well, and to provide some kind of simple things to take everything under control when you delegate something, and when you just want to see the results of your decision-making process also. I think that is the most interesting challenges, in my opinion.
I think so. So thank you for those. I think, I mean, all I can really add on top of what you both said is that for me, sometimes the challenge is balancing the needs of either senior clients or senior stakeholders with those that are maybe less senior, or also balancing the needs of the many with the few, and I think in both situations, they're both addressed in a similar way, in terms of not being too rigid with your approach, realizing you can create a dedicated approach for some individuals that's a little different from others as well. And I think there's always that ability to make a more customed way to interact with certain individuals. So I think just recognizing that is probably a step in the right direction.
I think I will add one more actually about tools and techniques, because there's always one stakeholder who doesn't want to log into Teams, for example, or who doesn't want to use a tool that we are choosing, yes, or a technique. We are talking about different techniques. There are different set of techniques.
That's
and
right.
The thing is that both sides need to know the technique and how to use it and how to understand that. And what I also share very often is that technique is just a means of communication, nothing more. Yes, so the technique should help us to understand each other more, to put it into some structure, some visualization, to put some information into the way that both sides understand. But then you can also struggle with that. The best way is to have one tool and technique for everyone, or like for most at least. We thought that there are different needs, but even when putting some information into one place, like a drive somewhere, yes, or maintaining the accessibility there are always these challenges, that someone lost the password, someone don't like to log in there, for example, or they are not doing this, or they are not maintaining the habit of checking something. So I think I would add that to this as well.
I think that's very fair to add that.
And I just remind myself one more thing about the helpers. Yep, And I think that a lot of guys, especially at the first step of on the first step of business analyst career, they faced with some kind of the fear, yeah, how they should go into communicate with this or that high-level stakeholder, etc. And at that moment of time, I just want to remind you guys that you are not alone. You have DMs, you have PM on your project, and as usually, if you have an idea, if you have some doubts inside you that you are not aware about the efficiency of this or that technique, or maybe this or that technique are not suitable for some specific situation or work case, just ask about a piece of advice with your highest colleagues, and in common decision, you will born the great solution.
That's it. And it brings us, it touches on a couple of things we said earlier on as well. So it's a nice way to sort of bring in the fact that, that through the stakeholder engagement, through transparency of tools, through broadening your horizons, not being responsible to do everything all at once, and a few other things beside that, we can develop people at a different level and they can get comfortable. I wonder, just in terms of skills or competencies that individuals could either benefit from having or developing to help their skills in relation to the communication plan. Are there any competencies or skills that spring to mind, Dmytro, that will be helpful?
Yes. Personally, I just want to highlight a couple of things that on skills level, that can be definitely useful for all of us and could be trained during the whole life, honestly. So the first skill is negotiation. I can say that negotiation mastery, yeah. And the second one is to define the main things. So please trying to make your communication process more laconic, but more and at the same time with great understanding, what you're going to say, because we have a lot of mass, a lot of our stakeholders just overloaded with information, with different kind of information, and this is crucial skill to define the right things and communicate these things in short and laconic way in right form.
Yeah. I would agree. Agnieszka, any skills that spring to mind for you?
Yeah, what I have written myself down is definitely some language skills you can develop. So yeah, so that's what I would add. Understand cultural differences. This is something that came to my mind. We haven't talked maybe about, but I think that is also some kind of thing that can come, let's say, in a communication plan or a process that can be a struggle. To understand cultural differences and also differences between people. I would add also emotional intelligence, I think, and awareness also. That I think that's very important skills. Like I truly believe that they will be even more important in following years because of AI, or thanks to AI, I would rather say. I would say thanks to AI, and I'm really happy for that. Like really getting. Having more trust to yourself, being good enough, that was already mentioned, and not being perfect in that, not being afraid to try things, as you, Dmytro, said also, just try if it works and change it and adjust. Adaptability that comes here too as well, which is very, very important. And yeah, I think that's what I would add. Of course, listening and this kind of skills, but I'm not sure about communication plan. In communication, yes, but maybe also, but I would not put it on the top.
It feels like it's one of those that would help in any situation.
Yeah.
Whereas those like behavioral intelligence, the emotional intelligence, and the behavioral or cultural awareness rather, they're both things that perhaps don't always come natural to us sometimes. So I think just making a point of thinking about those and reflecting on those points is really, really useful. Yeah.
But also,
And by the way,
being able to give and receive feedback. Sorry, Dmitry. I think
yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Dmytro, sorry, were you going to add a point yourself?
Yes. I just want to remind about two classic skills, presentation skills. Yeah, it's also very important. And by the way, not only listening, but active listening as a technique. Yeah. So that is also great point for all of us. The most common one, but we shouldn't forget about.
I think so. Yeah, but I mean, I think I would agree totally with what you just said. Both said. I think Dmytro, when you was giving your answer, you was touching on facilitation skills as well. So that I would call that out. I think empathy is always something that is a useful skill set. It's very similar to Agnieszka when you said communication. It's one of those things that apply across the board. But I think just putting yourself in the shoes of others who are going to receive the communication will help think about how you're going to communicate with others. So I think their skills are useful. And I think one other that I'll throw out there as well is sort of like the more design skills or UI UX type skill that we have in terms of, how can we design a communication plan that is most efficient and effective for all those different audience members as well. And that could be, organizing or adding the right colors to our Word document to make things stand out for some, or it could be, creating the right structure within our Confluence page as another example to help others get to it. But that occurred to me. But beyond that, as with this whole session, you've both given such excellent answers. There's really not too much for me to add on top, which I'm quite happy for that to be the case. So I think all that's really left then in that case is to thank you both for your time. Really good to meet you both and to hear your insights, and I'm grateful that you were willing to share those insights on communication plans and communication as part of business analysis. So I really appreciate that. So thank you both.
Thank you so much.
John, thank you so much, and see you.